Hey, it's Kesha. Welcome and welcome back. Well, you saw the title of this video and you clicked on it, so you have an idea of what's up. This one might be a long one because there's a lot to talk about, but I'm pretty confident you're going to stick with me because it's about money and manifesting a lot of it. So, how to win the lottery? There are a couple of different tracks I want to go down, and we'll start with the idea that, to manifest anything, you need to, one, set the intention for it, and then you need to prepare a space to receive it. And the how and the outworking and the timing is dependent, the how and the outworking is dependent on the universe, right? That's their job or its job. And then the timing is based on, really, it's on you. It's how receptive you are to receive this blessing, and how clear a path you've made in yourself to receive it. Some manifestations happen very quickly because they're small and our mind can accept it. But when it comes to something as large, say as a multi-million dollar lottery jackpot, that's a little bit bigger beyond our current frame of reference. And so it might take a little bit longer for us to receive it, not because it's so big that it takes longer, but it just takes longer for us to clear a path within ourselves to mentally, spiritually, emotionally handle the receipt of such a large, what we consider to be a large blessing. So a lot of that, of course, will have to do with growing your prosperity consciousness. And so, if you know me at all, you have heard me say a million times, how you are in the little things is how you are in the small things. And so if you are stingy with small amounts of money, it is not likely that larger amounts are going to come to you. And so, because how you handle one thing is how you handle another. So I want to talk about first how do we make space for it. So when you first think, okay, I want to win the lottery, everybody has that moment where you're talking to your friends, family, whatever, and you're like, well, if you won the lottery, what would you do with it? And people will talk about, well, I would pay off all my bills. I would go on vacation. I would pay my children's tuition. I would buy a new house. I would buy a car, all that, that kind of stuff. And it's kind of like this thought out here in this dream, and then it stops right there. And the dream is good because it gives you something to think about, makes your heart smile for a minute, but then what happens is you sink back into your space and you don't give it more thought. But I'm just here to say that if you want to get serious about it, then let's get serious. And so what that means is, if you won the lottery today, what would your next step be? Because we know that, yeah, you're going to, pay off all your debts and you're going to take yourself on a vacation. But before you get to that point, there are some very practical steps that you will have to go through. And if you haven't given thought to those practical steps before you receive your winnings, then you're not going to get to those fun things for quite some time. And the truth of the matter is, the decisions you make in the first 3 months of your lottery winnings very much so determines how much you have left and if you have anything left. And it determines the lifespan of the money that you receive, regardless of how much it is. And so rather than start to think about these things when you've won, we're going to be proactive and prepare a mental space for it. Because why take the time those first 3 months trying to figure out what to do next, when if you've already been thinking about it and you want to win, we should go ahead and set this shit up now, right? So that means, and if you Google anything related to what to do when you win the lottery, they're going to tell you need to get your team together. Well, when you've got this ticket burning in your, and they tell put your ticket in a safety deposit box or a safe space. When you've got that ticket and it's out there and it's in your safe deposit box, it is really hard to have conversations with potential members of your team, whether it's your accountant, your lawyer, and other financial and estate planner advisors, whoever you think might be necessary to help you establish a framework under which to receive and then live with this money. So the time to do that is not when you're under the excitement and duress and you've got all these other people. Like if you mention it to your family that you want, of course, everybody's going to want their piece, and they're going to want to know when they can get theirs now. And you're not going to be in a position to say that, to tell them that, or you're going to make the mistake of saying, "Oh, I got you. I'm going to take care of that." And people hear different. People hear what they want to hear, and they might not be hearing what you're saying to them. So if you say, "Oh, I'm going to take care of that," to them, that means you're giving them half the money. You know what I'm saying? So you'll need to be careful and be very clear about what you're saying and the commitments you're making to different people. Of course, it is best to keep your mouth shut because until you get a handle on what's going on, it's really hard to invite other people in it who have all these grand ideas about what's going to happen for them because of your blessing, right? So you will right now, think about assembling the kind of team that you need. What kind of lawyers, what kind of estate planners, what kind of accountants, and begin to seek out those people. If only that you start to do the research to figure out who it's going to be. Now, you might feel uncomfortable making a couple of introductory calls to actually talk to people to decide who it's going to be, because you're not going to call them and say, "Hey, I've just won the lottery and I'm wondering how you could help me, blah, blah, blah." Like, we're not going to open with that. But you could say, "I've recently come into a large sum of money and I'm looking at assembling a team of people who can help me best, make use of it," or whatever, you'll come to some language on that. And it doesn't even need to be that specific, but because they're used to people coming to them, right? But you want to have done some research. You want to have a slate of 3, 4, 5 people that you're thinking about for each of the different parts of your team that you want to fulfill. And yeah, if you're going to be serious, you do want to go ahead and have those conversations, because all of those steps that you take are going to start opening up files within you related to your prosperity consciousness. And if it feels uncomfortable to make that call, then that's an indication of your readiness, and that would tell you that you're not ready, right? So that's the one thing. The other thing is, if you're thinking about this now, I want you to make a list of all the things that you would do once you have money in hand, right? So what are the big dreams, the things that you would do? Like, "Oh my God, if I won a $50 million lottery jackpot tomorrow, this is what I want to do." So you make that list, and then I want you to look at that list very carefully and notice what things on that list you can already begin to do. Because not all of those things that are on that list require money. When you talk about it now, not having the money, and you think, "Oh, well, I would start a nonprofit. I would start a program providing water to remote villages in the Amazon," or whatever the thing it is that you want to do. Having money on hand is not going to be the first step to you achieving that goal. When people talk about, "Oh, I'd start a nonprofit," well, are you currently involved with any nonprofits? If you're not, how do you think that just by having money you're going to be able to start one? Because even if you have the money, there's going to be a learning curve and a ramp-up period that you would need to go through. And for all of those things that you need to have, the people that you need to meet, the conversations that you need to have, none of those things require money. But if it is your intention to actually do that thing when you have the money, then you need to start doing that action now. That is part of creating the vessel to receive. If your thing is, "Oh, as soon as I I'm going to pay off all my debts." Well, line up your debts and begin to pay them off, right? You don't have to wait to do that. Whatever your situation is in the moment, if you can begin to get creative and figure out a way to put an extra $5 or $10 towards an outstanding debt, then you are taking active steps in the direction of the dream you already want to experience. And because you have declared the intention and have taken the action step, oh, well, the universe goes, "Hey, it's time to get serious. She's on this. She's doing her part." And it's not about the amount that you put out there. It's the intention and the action that you take that signals to the universe that you are ready. And so when it comes to debt, start chipping away at it, $5 and $10. It doesn't matter how much. You just need to take the act and enjoy the excitement of, hey, I made an extra payment. I paid a little extra. I did more than the minimum, right? So those are some very simple and obvious things. And again, while that is happening, all of the files of your prosperity consciousness are going to begin to open. So you might have questions like, well, I have a large family. How am I going to share this blessing with people? Because once your family and the world knows that you have it, there's going to be demands on your resources. So it's a good idea to be thinking about the ways in which you would like to share the wealth. To have that plan in place before you mention it to other people gives you something to lean on when people are trying to lean on you to get from you, which is yours. And so if you have your team about you and you've decided that you're going to give X number of dollars to these people and they get their checks and you resolve the tax situation and all of that, and then you've got to figure out, well, what will you do when people come to you and ask for money? If your answer is going to be, well, I will need to talk about that with my accountant, well, you'll have an accountant and that will be a true statement for you. Because what's going to happen is people are going to say, oh, you're just saying that. And then you're so stingy, so greedy, got all that money and don't want to share. Look, that's other people. And you need to protect yourself from that kind of nonsense. You also need a certain amount of emotional preparation because, and if any of you have ever experienced the death of a loved one and seen what happens between family and friends when it comes to resolution of an estate, you probably have some idea of how ugly things can get when money is involved. And that's something you need to prepare yourself for. You need to be emotionally strong to withstand the criticism and what others will perceive as disappointment. So that's a lot of work. And these are the things that don't get talked about when you watch a segment on the news. Oh, I won, $30 million, and the next week they won another 10. Because that's the news, and that's their bread and butter, that excitement. But when we're talking about being intentional with wanting to receive this thing greater, these are the real things that come up. This is also why when you listen to the news about lottery winners, it's always so you've got the one set of stories about the initial excitement. Oh my God, this person won. And then you've got the other, oh, this person lost it all. And it seems like there's those two extremes, and that's all the information that's coming to you. What's not talked about is the groundwork that wasn't laid. And there are certainly times, and there are certainly people who, in a flash, in a moment, they have the openness in prosperity consciousness to receive such a large blessing. But the opening might have been small, but the vessel itself, or the opening itself might have been large, but the vessel itself is small, and so they can't maintain it. And so if your interest is not simply winning a multi-million-dollar lottery jackpot, but maintaining it over time, then you need to make sure that, yes, the opening is wide and clear, but also that the vessel is large enough to maintain it. Going back to the steps that you take in the direction of the dreams that you would realize once you had the money. If, while this process of you growing your prosperity consciousness is going on, it turns out that you accomplished those particular goals, then was it really important that you won the lottery? And so it's not so much that it's about the excitement of winning this grand prize. It's that you took yourself and your dream seriously and began to take steps towards it, and you continued taking the next step that was in front of you. So there are a couple of examples of some of the things that I've talked about that I want to share with you. In terms of creating a space, so first one I'll give you is when I moved back to the States from living in Korea, I needed a car. I was living in Atlanta, and that is not a pedestrian or public transportation rich city. And so a car was absolutely essential. When I came back from Korea, I didn't have money, and I didn't even know what kind of car I wanted. I had given up my Corolla when I left for Korea, and when I came back, I didn't have a car. So I started to think, okay, what kind of car do I want? And I went through all the brands and I went through all the models, and I just kind of like, what do I really want? And what I came up with was I wanted a BMW 3 Series, a 325. And it's kind of an odd choice, I think, for someone who didn't have a job and didn't have any money, just had a thought and a dream. And that really didn't matter to me. This is the car that I decided that I wanted, and I was going to do what needed to be done to make that happen. Well, one of the things that I did to make that happen was a prosperity exercise, and maybe at some point we'll talk about that in another video. Anyway, I did my prosperity exercise, and it had me think about what I would do with large sums of money coming into my world. So for me at the time, this was, I was very nascent in my prosperity consciousness. Large sums of money was $1,000 coming to me unexpectedly. And so that's what I started with in my little journal. And so I was like, okay, so if I have $1,000, what am I going to spend it on? And I made a list, and then, I got a little comfortable with that idea, and then I added a little more. So it's like, if I have $2,000, what am I going to do? If I have $3,000, what am I going to do? And so I think at the level where I had like $2,000 or $3,000 in my little mental bank, I was like, oh, what am I going to do? I need to buy a car. I'm going to put a down payment on a car. So this was all my little dream, my little journal, and I'm going through, and I was lucky in those first 2 months that I was back in the States. I had an incredibly gracious and generous and good-looking uncle who let me borrow one of his cars, and so that's what I was using to get around those first 2 months while I was working all this stuff out. And then, boom! One day I checked my bank account. Some transactions had happened, and I had like $3,000 in my account. And whoo, you're talking about a happy dance, because I had never received that amount of money before, like at one time. And it was like, whoo, I got money. Let's go do something. And then a sudden a thought dropped. I was like, well, wait a minute. No, didn't you say that when you had $3,000 that these are the things, like what was it that you were going to do with that money when you got it? So I go back to my journal and I look at my notes, and the first thing I see is down payment on a car. And I'm like, yes, this is how we do it. And so I called the dealership. I asked if they had what I wanted. They said, come on down. And that is how I manifested my first BMW. It's important to note that when you make a declaration about what you will do with money when you get it, that you maintain fidelity to your word and do precisely that. Because again, how you are in the little things is how you are in the small things. If you can't maintain your word when you get an extra $20 that you said, oh, if I get this $20, I'm going to go do this thing over here, then money recognizes that you don't respect it. And so it makes it harder to manifest under those conditions. Another example, a friend of mine, very, very, very good friend of mine, lives in a far, far place in the middle of the ocean. And we were talking one night, and she was telling me about how she was a little stressed out and a little upset that this furniture that she wanted may or may not arrive. And she was on pins and needles about, oh, my furniture may or may not arrive. And I'm like, well, there's nothing you can do about whether or not the furniture arrives. But my question is, if it arrives right now, are you going to have a place to put it? And she's like, no. And I said, well, then focus not on the worry of whether or not it's going to come, but focus instead on what is immediately in front of you and immediately obvious and right in front of you, which is what I'm always saying in these videos. Start preparing the space for it. Start clearing out the room you're going to put the furniture in. Start rearranging things to receive this furniture. And so by virtue of her focusing her attention on that, what was immediately obvious and right in front of her, Worry about a future event that she has no control over goes out the window. She prepares a space for it, and as soon as she finishes preparing the room, gets the call, the furniture is at the docks. She can go pick it up, or she can have it delivered to the house. That is preparing a space. I could go on and on and on about ways in which, how we prepare the space in different occurrences. And the last one I'm going to leave you with is this. This morning, as I was preparing to film my Aquarian videos, which I've already done, I was thinking to myself about how I really do want to go ahead and start filming at least 2 videos when I film one video, just to make the better use of my time. And the fact that, I don't know if you even know this, but I have this little inflammation, irritation going on with my eyes, that as much as I love makeup and love wearing eye makeup, I can only wear it for about an hour before my eyes start to spitz and get really irritated. So if I'm going to wear makeup to film a video, which I've seen videos where I don't wear makeup, but obviously I need to. If I'm putting it on to film one video, I'm going to, go ahead and film 2. But I was like, of the videos that I have planned that are coming up, they're not ready yet. And I don't have anything. So I was like, I really wish I had a second video. I really want to film 2 videos today. And as I sat down in meditation, Spirit gave me this video. And the funny thing about it is, I've been wanting to film this video and talk about this or write a book or do something on this topic for the last at least 5 years, if not longer. But I have always put it off because I thought I needed to win the lottery in order to have the authority to talk about it. And what Spirit reminded me this morning was that, Kesha, you've won the lottery twice. You're a 2-time lottery jackpot winner. You are not yet a multi-million-dollar lottery jackpot winner, but you can most certainly claim, I'm a 2-time lottery jackpot winner. And that is the truth. So I do have the authority to talk about it. If only because the list of things that I made that I wanted to do when I won the lottery, I fucking started doing them. And the difference it is making in my life tells me, 1, I don't need the lottery, but I'm going to get it because that's going to be fun. And it's really important to show up for ourselves before we expect the universe and everybody else to. So that is the message from Spirit. I'm so glad to have been the one to be able to deliver it to you. And we will be back here at another time to talk about something else. I love you. Bye.